This is the talk of Music City Real Estate.
Welcome back to another episode of the Talk of Music City Real Estate,
where we educate and motivate all things real estate.
My name is Monte Mohr with Realty One Group Music City.
Hey, and I'm Carey Ann with CMG Financial and my mortgage team.
Every week we'll be posting a new episode chock full of Nashville real estate value.
Yes, and you can follow along and subscribe at talkmusiccity.com.
Got a question for us? Ask away at questions@talkmusiccity.com.
Monty!
Carey Ann, I'm excited about our podcast today because not only do I get to sit next to you, but one of my heroes,
the one, the only
TJ Ojehomon in the house. TJ,
so
good to see you, brother. It really truly
welcome,
is.
TJ.
Always good to be here.
The Teaching Realtor.
Yes.
Okay, and I was just talking earlier that there's two edges to that sword. When he embraced that idea, I thought, now there's somebody who's not afraid of work. Mm-hmm. There's somebody who sees the value of starting with a foundation of someone's learning and trust and for future business. It may be tougher on the front end, but it's like forever business because he does such a great job teaching them. Well, in the meantime, he also has added to his team some newer folks and spends unbelievable amounts of time with them, training them, making sure they're doing things right. So, if our industry is guilty of anything, guys, there's not enough training and not enough teaching and not enough that kind of attitude of service, to really honor the experience, especially of a newer person. And so, TJ, you feel that really, really well. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir. I'm trying.
And you have a heart of gold and you're very humble, but, you did the right way. So, being in this business 20 something years, you see a lot of real estate agents and they're all amazing. You bring a different spin and
I don't know if they're all amazing. I'm sorry. I'm not sure they're all amazing, but we'll leave this here.
This is why we work so well together. This is why we are together. We are one money. I think there's always something good with everybody. But what I'm saying is you bring kind of, not to say a different
Isn't that Bambi's
spin.
mother that said that?
Oh my gosh.
Or no, she said if you don't have something good to say, don't say anything at all.
Okay.
That's what she said.
But I love that. And we'll talk a little bit about it too. TJ's background, I think sometimes whether you come from a different profession or a different career and then you get into real estate, some of that kind of shines bright. And you were lucky to be, part of something close, a complement to the real estate business that I think really makes a difference out there and allows you to teach at that next level, I think.
A lot deeper than the average agent probably can.
For sure.
I hear that. That's I didn't think about that perspective, but I thought about it from the authoritative point. What we're talking about, guys, is TJ came from the banking industry. Tell us a little bit about your history, TJ. What makes you who you are, and there's that other topic I want to talk. When we're done with that.
I mean, I am. When I graduated Lipscomb University, one of the skills I had was, of course, leadership. I had to be in leadership in a couple of different capacities, and ultimately had a very organized frame of mind. And if you're going to be a successful leader, it does help to be organized. Not all leaders are necessarily organized, but it's definitely an asset. And so I liked how I looked at information, made assessments, that kind of thing. And so ended up when I graduated, I had, a couple of these skills. I asked somebody, I said, hey, man, I'm looking for a job, and he said, hey, you want to get in the car dealership industry, selling cars for Lexus, or you want to go to banking and make a steady 2-week paycheck for a little bit? And I said, let's take that 2-week paycheck. And we actually, I needed something guaranteed at that point. I didn't know much about sales at that capacity. And so we ended up going into banking and learned a lot in that industry after about 4 to 5 years, and then left, transitioned into working for a property management firm as a director. And then left and came, had a real estate license already with that firm, and then came and said, let's do real estate full time. So
that's probably one of the best backgrounds you could have, probably.
I mean, everything has connected. Mm-hmm. I will say I haven't gone rogue with what my career. Everything kind of every career dynamic has been advantageous.
Sounds a lot better than mine going from factory worker to realtor. There's not quite the smooth transition.
It worked out for you, baby.
Years later, it worked out.
Oh yeah.
That's interesting. So with that said, TJ, with that perspective that you have, which is honestly, I honor that, and anybody who's coming from that kind of background of the banking part of it, because you understand numbers a lot better than a lot of us do. What is your perception of 2024? Let me give you the $1,000 question right out of the box. What's your and this is going towards our audience is other real estate agents, and so don't worry about the consumers. I think we can just go ahead and be real. I don't mean don't worry about the consumers. That's all that matters. But my point is let's not sugarcoat it totally. I mean, I'm all about being positive. Don't get me wrong.
I think we have kind of got through the worst of the market from the roller coaster side of things. Now, obviously, the mortgage moratoriums have lifted. We've also seen the student loan deferment be removed. So we'll have to see how those shifts play out and what the market looks like. Employment has definitely the unemployment rate has definitely decreased. So we're seeing a little bit of stability. You have contrary opinions right now that there's a bubble waiting to burst and that, we're coming in for a soft landing. And in economics, we don't ever know until it really happens. Everybody can only make a projected forecast.
We all we know is where we've been.
Right.
And it seems so obvious. If we just would have known where we're going, it would have been so much easier than just... Because when we make decisions based on where we've been, sometimes those aren't the best decisions.
Correct. And I think sometimes, too, everybody's waiting for a big bang. Mm-hmm. The thing about 2008 is that's what, my generation, that's what they think troubled economies look like. It's just this loud, big, the sky's falling situation. Mm-hmm. And we've had dozens of recessions since we've established the Federal Reserve. So it's not anything new for our economy, the way our fiat system is set up. And so I don't think there's a big bang. I think there were a lot of shifts that happened. There was some undertone with data. But I think going into 2024, I think the market definitely, what has happened is there's been a significant separation in contrast to household income and inflation. I think there's been a major gap that's opened up, and I think we've created a bigger poverty window, in all honesty. But
you consider that you got to make six figures in order to buy a house.
Exactly. Well, and you can make less, but the reality is, if you're going to buy a home, put down a reasonable payment, and still save and still pay off debt, now it takes about six figures. And I think it's always interesting, we have there's always kind of the battle of the sexes where, there's a conversation back and forth between, what should men pay for all the bills and should women help out and should they not, this, that, and the other. And it's like, hey, you guys, making an assessment based on economies from the 70s, 80s, things like, it's just so different now. Everything is incredibly different. It really takes a very strong income with very little debt, or two incomes, to make things happen in the current real estate market. But all in all, I think, the real ride was 23. I think there's projections that going into the spring and summer, the Fed is going to start pulling back on rates. And so we'll see how that plays out. And if that, now pulling back does not mean slicing in half or anything like that, but we'll see how that plays out to everybody's favor as things kind of ease up.
Do you feel like the election year will play a role in that? I
think that does. I think kind of once we get over that hump and we kind of see who the new president is, that will kind of give investors on Wall Street more projections to make. And I think we'll see people get more solidified in which direction they want to go. So yeah, that's definitely going to help when that noise cools down. I think right now, kind of more so looking at like a holding pattern until all that transpires.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So, Miss Carey Ann Cyr, world famous #1 mortgage professional in the universe.
I love you.
Any thoughts on that topic? And before we go on to the next one,
Yeah, I think you're onto something. I mean, I think we talk a lot about affordability and comfort levels. You know, what I see is there's an interest. There's people that want, they take apps, and then they kind of fizzle only because they're not as comfortable, right, with that monthly payment. And so I think, you know, kind of talking in bigger terms, like, you know, we talk about minimum wage numbers. We talk about, you know, this industry is used to making blank, right? That industry is used to making blank. You know, has that shifted, you know, with the times? Yes, in sales, if you're good, and there was a time you didn't even have to be good and you could make a lot of money, right? But
Monte's words, an untrained monkey.
yeah. But going back to the song, right? More money, more problems. I do think sometimes, depending, right? There's some people that got excited, right? They did make more money, which meant they spent more, right? The car in the driveway might be a little fancier, and or the cost of cars. I went and just looked for another truck, you know, for our family to kind of shift. And I was like, I'm sorry, you want what for what? You know, when you think back, 2003 when I bought the first exact same truck, you know, type of thing. It's a little different in price. So yes, all that, shifts. But until we see that changing, I do think that new home construction, we hear a lot of builders and talk about that, right? The cost of lumber, the cost of this, the cost of being creative, blah, 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 all the things, the price of those homes, you know, keep. And if there's demand, it just goes back to that crazy cup. Do you have that cup? Please don't tell me you have that cup.
Cup?
There's a cup. You have the cup. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't.
Your wife doesn't have the cup. The Stanley Cup. Yeah. Okay, so going back to that, but that's a whole discussion, right, in itself. Genius, right? Genius. That company has been a 100 years company. Focused on the man, all the things.
Yeah,
they
saws
shift,
and hammers. And,
they shift, right, to an idea of changing their color scheme and focusing on, you know, female audience. And then guess what? They focused on the teenagers, and then the teenagers became the 10-year-olds. And my kid's coming home saying, Mommy, I need a Stanley. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, right? Because that's not an interest to me. But that right there, you went from a cost of a certain cup. It's a cup that holds a liquid that actually hurts my wrist because it's too big. Yeah. But it went from this price to that price to that price. We saw that in real estate. I mean, people were selling, I taught a class today. People were selling ugly homes, right? That needed so much work for $50,000, $100,000 over. Now those ugly homes just sit, right? Because they're ugly, you know, in technical terms. So as things shift around, interest rates come down just a little, the demand, you know, will continue to grow. We'll probably be right back where we are. It's only going to continue to go, right? I do feel like we need to get the affordability and the income levels kind of squared away to help more, for sure.
The growing number of people who would, I mean, the thing about it is, that I've always rested in is right now around somebody's kitchen, somebody's deciding they need to buy or sell real estate. You know, it's constantly happening because life is happening, because babies are being made, or because divorces are happening. I mean, you're looking at somebody who has sold homes, third generation, you know, being passed down as the family realtor, because life is continuing to happen. So we have that in our favor. And I think right now, even though some of those folks can't exercise maybe because they're not comfortable or whatever, that need isn't going away. You know, that wall is building. That willingness to drive further out of town has increased, of course, because of the affordability factor. But
well, anyway. I mean, I would speak to this. I mean, here's the thing. After we had 3 years of kind of an intense shift in the economy from COVID on, when it comes to housing market, we're not going back to $900 payments. We're not going back to, I mean, HOAs are more prevalent than ever. That's going to add to everybody's cost. A lot of cities and municipalities are saying, hey, we need to, Nashville had a huge jump in property taxes. The reality is this, is that home ownership is now going to be for the financially prepared. It is you're not going to squeeze into it. You're not going to, I've had to, one of the conversations I've had more than ever in my last 6 months of consultations is we need to strategically look at how to get your income up. I hate that, because what I've always said was we need to master your income. You need to do better with how you're managing it, and let's clean up some stuff.
Okay, saving,
in reality, getting rid of different silly debts and expenses. But now the conversation is significantly more towards, we need to tell me, how long have you been at this job? Okay, have you thought about a promotion? Have you thought about looking at competitors? Have you thought about getting some kind of certification? Have you thought about moving into management?
Wow. Yeah.
We're having those conversations, because if I got people that, I just like this, kind of right in the middle of the road job, and I like to stay where I'm at, and this, that, and I said, well, math has got to make sense. But then you have a higher demand for single family one you've had before. I don't know what the thing is. It's a conversation itself about issues with townhomes and condos, but they get a bad connotation, even though they're more affordable. But you're looking at the single family home market. People want the single family home, which is your premium product.
Sure.
So I think we have greatly shifted, and I think the hope is to the everyday consumer, let this market crash so that I can breathe again, and I can get back to those back in the day prices where I should have tried it anyway, and I didn't.
Right. And the word of affordable housing, I'm on a lot of, the committees or groups, where they come together and mastermind, with affordable housing.
Right.
What's affordable housing? Right. I mean, at the end of the day, right, what used to be affordable housing is now not. And the people, were pushed out, right, because of investors and different things. I do think that takes a stance, and a strong stance, for us to write in our bylaws, et cetera, within the communities, that there shouldn't be. I know you and I want to sell the houses, but we should open up the door to allow more people the opportunity to get in within, right? Because if not, the investors will continue to push those prices up. That's just my opinion. But
I think investors have said, we can't, for what you guys are charging us for the dirt, we can't make them affordable.
That's the other part.
And so that's the thing. I think investors that might be interested in those projects, when the cities make those proposals to different contractors, it's like it wouldn't make sense for us. Now they try to throw incentives, but I think that's the other side too, is I think we've gotten so beyond now to where we've created this explosion of values, some of it a little fluffed, to where, and then we try to come back after the damage is done and squeeze in some affordability. And the reality is we should have looked at more sustainable practices before it got where it was.
I went to a city council meeting. This was interesting. I was there to discuss true affordable housing, types of loans, et cetera, how to serve more of the community, open more doors, all the things. Do you know that it was quite interesting? So much of the community came around and say, don't come to our community, right? Don't bring affordable housing to our community. They considered affordable housing to be a negative, right? Like the days of 150,000 in the Clampets, that doesn't mean affordable housing, right? I mean, there's opportunity, right? The people that were able to purchase in, that have been in these communities long term, they were able to buy in, right, at the lower price. There's no place for anybody to get an opportunity to even swing, and get an up to bat.
And that's interesting too when you talk about other communities, because when affordable housing was kind of first introduced to what we know today by the FHA years ago, it was originally designed to help with wartime veterans who were coming back to have housing. There was not enough housing for them, so they developed different communities to house veterans. What ended up happening was, as we saw some racial dynamic shifting, that it ended up being kind of like a white flight, and everybody got out and said, no, we don't want to be in it. We want to go build in the new neighborhoods that they're building, and get out of the transitional housing that FHA has established. But they still needed somebody to fill the transitional housing, and it ended up turning into lower income housing, which turned into projects, but originally was designed for affordable housing.
Sure.
So you have sometimes that connotation,
right,
that you're trying to bring in low income people here that's going to devalue us, not understanding that it's actually a balance to your market, and it actually brings in a lot of commerce, and it actually brings in a lot of different job opportunities. So I think people have to have a better understanding of what that is initially, so that they can better see that affordable housing can be done in an appropriate way, in a helpful way.
Yeah. And for years, I've been doing this business a long time. My average loan size for years was $225,000 for years. Okay. Now that jumped up this past year closer to almost 4 just by organically, right? I don't look at a 250 price point to be any less than my house when I bought and I made good money was 202. Right, 202,000. Right, it's still that same bones of that home still sits over there today in Franklin. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
So that doesn't change who I was, et cetera. Right, the person that walked into that neighborhood, we got kicked out of that community. I mean, that builder never got the opportunity to build in there because of that, right? I mean, got turned down. I just find that interesting. And this was 3 times up to bat, I think, with the city council trying to, bring a quality, right? New construction quality that was at a certain price point that would help welcome, more of the community, and get turned down. So where do you go? If you keep getting turned down, you can't bring the price point down. Right. And so then you've got builders that are forced to have to continue to build at a certain price point, and or continue to go because everybody else wants their values to continue to rise. The other part of the storyline is Joe, Sue, Steve, all the people that own their homes have gained lots of equity because of the blessing that we've had over the last couple of years. Right. So they have all this equity and then their cash is in the home. Okay. So now they want to go find another home, but they're going to have to find double the price home to get any more than what they currently have. Right. And so then nobody wants to take the contingency. We can't pull the money out of the current home. They don't qualify for 2 homes. Right. And now possibly they had an interest rate yesterday, that was, they think is okay. Everything is relative. Right. I mean, 4 yesterday, is 6 today is still okay. Right. I mean, it's all about the shift of the numbers and the quality of affordability. But that's the other struggle that we're seeing. We have all these people. I mean, I've got lists and lists. There's nothing I can do because I can't sell the current house. And why can't you sell the current house? Well, because it's not as pretty as that one. There's too much work that needs to, be done. And so we're right back to the situation where people got used to being able to just sell a house without doing much to it. Right. And so now we've got to kind of, start and peel back that onion and kind of get back. So we could talk for days about, this storyline, but it is a good one. And you feel bad for a lot of people because they're not understanding either the average buyer today. And we talk about this really freely and they're making fun of the Stanley Cup. You think it's hard to buy a Stanley Cup today. Wait to buy a house in April, right?
To be fair, I did see somebody trying to resell a Stanley Cup for $800.
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't own a Stanley Cup. We'll never own a Stanley Cup. My daughter owns a dupe. Was that what it's called? $24.99. It looks just like it. It's fine. Everything is fine. But I do think the demand will come back, which is so frustrating because you know what the demand means. The sellers don't want to pay much because they think they can make a few other dollars, right? A few extra dollars. And the negotiations may change, and I hate to ever see more of the folks in other states that have more cash coming in and kind of pushing out the locals, which makes it hard too, which we saw over the last couple years.
One thing I'd like to share real quickly on this topic is simply I encourage people to have a conviction that when you have the opportunity to sell to a homeowner versus an investor, I know we're all wanting to make it smooth and the cash looks better than maybe an FHA loan, unless Carey Ann's in charge of it. But I've always had that conviction that if I have the opportunity, when we're looking at multiple offer situations, I always leaned on even a lesser amount of money with a true homeowner living there. Because at the end of the day, it's not helping the neighborhood by having too many tenants in it. And I've been a tenant too, many times, but a lot of times tenants don't have the same conviction about taking care of a property. So just be mindful of that. Try when you can. I think as an industry, we're going to reap the benefits of that kind of mindset versus not having it. Okay.
Yeah. And I think that dials in. I mean, I do feel confident in my abilities. I know that we end up trusting, certain people. They haven't let us down from a finance standpoint for a long time. Right. For years, couple years, people have just accepted lenders to be lenders. They're not all the same. Real estate agents aren't all the same. Lenders are not all the same. We talked about this, right? Some just throw stuff up against the wall and make it shiny and think it's great. Getting back to what you're saying is the right loan for a consumer, and you're a big someone passionate about this too, may not be the prettiest so-called loan for a seller. It does not make sense for me to force somebody to be in a conventional loan when they can have a lower payment, and have lower and less money out of pocket on an FHA, right? But FHA to some of the real estate agents is a no, negative. Like you referenced, in my world, it's easy breezy because I know it inside and out, right? There's a confidence level. So to go back, whether you choose to take loan A or B, I think it's really starts with the confidence level, right? Readjust the narrative and get back that confidence within whoever is providing that financing. Now, I cannot control if the buyer decides to walk ever, right? And I'm good to go on the financing piece. I can't control that. But nor can you control the person who has cash, because I've had multiple sales with cash and they've done me dirty, right? And done me wrong. So at the end of the day, I think it's here or there. But going back to not just taking any lender's pre-approval, ask more questions, right? Take the time to look and see, and then pick up keywords. You're great at this, like trigger words, right? Well, that means actually something more, right? Because you know the definition, so you already know to ask more questions, right? See more of the clues, on the upfront. I think will help many of you. I think continue, but just taking everybody's finance to be good to go. That's not this year for sure.
And I think that's where we've got to get better as agents. We've got to get better as agents in understanding how to navigate different circumstances. And if you're going to be an agent that only wants to work with cash and conventional buyers that have 20% down, you're not going to be of service to a lot of these communities you're serving. In addition to the fact that it really comes off as incompetent, that you don't know how to navigate a VA, or you don't know how to, as a listing agent, explain an FHA to your, because if I'm listing a home and I get an FHA or a VA, we just communicate to the seller. The biggest stipulation with this is the appraisal contingency. That's the biggest thing. And usually we can navigate it through negotiations, but that's all that means. And when you're able to help, now on the buyer side, the loan means a lot more stuff, but even just educating, if we can better be equipped. And I think sometimes one thing I've understand too, and we got to be careful with this power, and you're a realtor and this is what we do every day. And you have somebody that comes to us, they hadn't sold their home for 10 years and they don't do this every day. They really trust us. And when you abuse that trust by causing constant fear for situations you don't like personally as a professional, because I hear agents get on the phone and say things to me before they've even ran it by their client. And I'm like, well, first off, this isn't your decision to make. Have you talked to your client yet before we start giving me your personal opinion? And ultimately, I think that can be damning to an industry where we're making those decisions instead of making sure that we're educating and navigating, and that's really our jobs.
I love that, navigating, an educating piece, and it starts with you and I studying our craft really well, right? Understanding enough to be dangerous, because I don't know all things about your contract, because you're the real estate agent and I'm the lender, but making sure you connect with partners that get it, understand it, that if a bump happens within the road, which we're in the business of bumps happening on a regular basis. How quickly can we iron out, the situation? How quickly can we pivot? I know you giggle when I say pivot all the time, but I mean, it is. How are you on your toes? Are the people that you are surrounding yourself with on their toes or on their heels? And how quickly are they learning to be prepared for the changes? But it takes a village, right, to do this business. We're blessed for so many that work really closely with a solution mindset, with the idea of we want to move things in a forward direction. Some of the stuff that I hear and I see and they say it to me, I was just like, are we in this business of working together? What are we doing here? Right. This, I can't control if Joe, Sue, Steve, whoever told me something and I approve something based upon it, and I can't get their employer to reach back out to me. I've done everything I can. Finally, 3 weeks later, employer comes back to me and the dates are off.
Right.
And I can't close something the way that I want to do. Am I just going to be that lender that just says, sorry, it's dead? No, I'm that lender that you trust that knows that she's going to do everything in her power to find a solution because I have a solution mindset. So working closely with those folks will help all of us within the industry get the folks that should not be in mine and yours out and continue to level up all of us. So I think that's a huge win.
So TJ, I want to take a hard left or right turn, whichever you prefer calling it, but something off this topic, because Connie and I got to witness one of the more successful client appreciation events that I've ever seen. I'm not claiming to be an expert at it, but I am saying I saw an expert in action on it, and I'd like to talk for a few minutes. We don't have a lot of time left, but I didn't want to go down that path because it was obviously something that I should do a better job at as a experienced real estate broker for my clients. And you put it in action, and I'd love to hear how you did it, and I saw some of the results. I mean, people were thrilled to be there, and it was just an awesome experience.
Yeah. So this past December, we hosted our second annual client appreciation event, and when I initially did it, it was just like, so when I initially did it, it was off of having a really, really strong year. And volume, top this, top that with a couple of different groups. And I made some good money. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I thought about was I said, man, I'm really, listen, what I understand is the realtor market is highly competitive. I have somebody coming to me now, clients, I'm thinking about getting my real estate license, this, that, and
Yeah.
It's highly competitive. And we know that as professionals, the majority of business is going to be done by a small group of people, but you have a large group of people that eat up one or two deals a year that spreads pretty thin. So when somebody chooses me, it really means it's an opportunity for me to be able to showcase my skill. It's an opportunity for me to prove somebody's trust. And then also for me to feed my family. That's a great honor to be trusted out of 17,000 agents in Middle Tennessee. Okay. And so initially it was just a moment of appreciation that I want to do just host people and just say thank you for working with me and trusting me this year. And we had a lot of success with the first one. It was, and just tried to bring different elements to it just to get my clients back together. And then, when we came back and did a second time, I brought along my larger team now, and we executed another one. And this one was, you got to see one that was even more successful. And it was just a way to, you got to think about it. When you sell a home or you help somebody buy a home, sometimes that relationship can be transactional if you don't have a game plan in place to stay in contact with those relationships. And so when I get calls from my clients kind of out the blue, doesn't bother me, and they don't have a fear of picking up the phone either. And that's just kind of one of those things to where when you don't get to see those clients throughout, it's just an excuse to bring them back at the end of the year and say, hey man, we're still me and you. What's so interesting is I've also worked with other clients before that have said, they may be wanting to sell their house, and I'll go back and look at the previous MLS listing, and I'll see, this was another agent that sold this, and I said, why did you didn't call your other agent back? I ain't heard from them in 3 years, 5 years. I ain't worried about them. And they want to work with me because this is somebody they visibly see from a media perspective. This is somebody they see takes us seriously. And so that's a way too, once a year at minimum, to bring somebody back and say, reconnect. I've heard from TJ. Good to hear from TJ again. Good to hang out with him and his family and his team and eat food and fellowship. And so the relationship never dies, essentially.
Right.
That's
Love
the hope.
that.
So what we did was we brought any client I've worked with, not just from the previous year, but any client I've ever worked with previously, they get an invite to come back and hang with me, hang with the team. We feed them. We gave away about $500 in prizes. door prizes, and we had music, we had live singing. I don't know if you got a chance to hear Shanae.
Oh,
sing
she's
a
so
Holy
good.
Night.
Yeah.
So, it was just, and then everybody just hung out. It was just a relaxed event and good food. I'm big on good food and plenty of it. And so we hung out, had a great time. And I think it's just really a unique way to re-engage clients.
What I watched you in action was to making everybody in that room feel important, feel connected to,
I
feel
love that.
appreciated.
Now, did you think that doing it over the holidays was a bigger win? Like there was more love in the air?
I think
what I'm
everybody's
saying?
in party mode.
Yeah.
Around December. So we tried to stay, 10, 12 days away from Christmas.
Right.
And this year, one tweak I did was last year, the first year we did it, I think we had on a Thursday night. And so this year I switched to a Friday night so that people wouldn't have to be stressed about work the next day or things like that. Right. So we got a little bit more traffic, but we had great turnout. And so ultimately, it was just a unique. What did you say? You said,
yeah. Well, what I would say also is what's great about offering an appreciation gathering, right? Love is in the air is what I said. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Sharing the love.
Yeah.
But what's great about it is you get to share your love back through the invitation, right? So whether they can come or not, you thought of me, you took the time to, put together an event, maybe because I follow you on social as your client, I can see that I wasn't there, but I would have had all that, so that's another win too, right? Having and gathering that. Now, anything you do has to be planned, and you're such a good organizer. You're one of the best, and budgeters too. And I think that comes from your previous, world in banking and educating people, right, to make sure that they can qualify and feel comfortable. So planning ahead, I think, is key, right? Do you put away so much money per transaction? Like, do you have a appreciation budget? Do you put away?
Yeah, here's one way we do it. Like I tell you, I always reinvest portions of commissions back to business accounts. That's one part of it. But here's the other thing we did, right? One of the things as realtors is that we help folks make a lot of money. We pass a lot of referrals off between insurance agents, between title companies, between lenders, between home inspectors. We help folks make a lot of money. And I like to call those folks and say, hey, listen, help you make a good bit of money this year. Would you be interested in reinvesting back into sponsoring our client appreciation event that we have coming up with some of the clients that work with you? And we obviously do the ones that we have good relationships with, but I ended up getting about 75% of the cost covered through sponsorships and partners and companies we've worked with.
Yeah.
Cool. And so I think if you're working with partners and vendors, and you have a good relationship with them and you guys do a lot of work together, definitely don't be afraid to have that conversation to say, hey, listen, can we partner together on something? And you'd be amazed. I mean, folks like Carey Ann, she's big on wanting her agents to win. So any way she can get involved or partner or plug in, something like that. Monte, I know you've got some folks that do the same with you. They want to do it. So you'd be surprised some do really want to do that for you, especially if they own their companies. And so ultimately, I just went back and, without much convincing at all, they were absolutely.
They know you're serious about it, TJ. I mean, you take somebody like Carey Ann, she gets a lot of invitations for helping out, I'm sure. But
and you want to see
it is
the
a win-win
folks that,
situation.
that invest all year round too, right? I do think there's some people that are just takers, and then there's givers, there's lovers and fighters, all the things. And so there's some great vendors out there that are thinking about it's a village. We all need to work together, right? And we need to grow. And this year, Monte, what are we doing? We're roaring and soaring together.
And soaring.
In 24. I love it. Hey, it's always such a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you.
We learned so
Glad
much.
Thank you,
and then
TJ.
to have a good, strong conversation with somebody with your expertise is always win. So we're grateful to have you.
Thank you.
Great job, TJ. Thank you for sharing with us.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are kicking off the new year. We cannot wait to have you come back all throughout the year because we are roaring and soaring in 24. Welcome back. Thanks for listening to the Talk of Music City Real Estate.
Amen.